Well, good morning. How is everyone today? So I'm trying to figure out if I can do my reading glasses if I need them. Okay, I think I need them. I can't see you guys, but I can do that. Well, good morning. I know you guys have a lot of speakers this morning. I also moonlight as a yoga teacher. So I want everybody just to close their eyes and take a deep breath in. Hold your breath at the top and then shake your hands. Shake, 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 shake it. Shake it all out. Shake, because shaking is so good for your nervous system. And exhale. All right, so don't you feel a lot better? So you do that with your students too, or you know, ornery staff members who need to be a little calmer. And it wakes you up as well. So it is true, I do moonlight as a Kundalini yoga and meditation teacher. I taught last night and this morning at 5 a.m. Anyways, how many of you were here last October, right? Okay, a few of you. So we had a really nice panel. They brought it together. And even last October, people were like, oh, it's the Census 2020. That seems like forever, right? But now, since then, a lot of stuff has gone down. You know, Supreme Court got super interested in it. A lot of dollars are being invested, and actually, more states are actually kind of waking up to the call. You know, we've been working, well, this is my third census, so I've worked on the 2000 and the 2010 census at the state level, and then I most recently served as chair of the National Advisory Committee to the U.S. Census Bureaus on race, ethnicities, and other populations. And that's strictly a volunteer gig. I would go back every couple months and meet with really cool folks that represent some of our most underserved populations. But knowing this and having these other two decennials under my belt, I've seen a lot of why people are undercounted. I've seen how outreach works or doesn't work. And we know that some of the biggest barriers as we're heading into 2020 is distrust of government, right? Like that's a given, but that is so huge. Like how do we overcome that? Because it's coming at us from all directions. The political environment around immigrants and refugees, that's getting very tense. And then for the first time, again, it's gonna be online, right? Which is great for, you know, everybody that has a nice little triangular thing in their pocket that they can log on to. You typically certain age ranges, but my 84-year-old mother, she's got an iPad, but that's really to FaceTime me to guilt me of why I haven't come visit lately. So, and she mainly speaks Tagalog, so what'll probably happen is my 16-year-old daughter will either FaceTime her or have to go over and help her figure out how to fill it out online. Luckily for her, Tagalog is one of the languages. There are 12 languages online, as well as English, that can be accessed. So I think that's going to be some problems, but I think we have some huge opportunities with that because now you don't have to wait around and search around for that paper document. So if we can really think about how we intergenerationally use our assets to make sure that everybody's counted. My viewpoint when people say, Dita, what's going to make the difference? And this time around, it's going to be the youth, right? And I'm kind of focusing K through 12, but many of them have little brothers and sisters, and they're going to go back and say, don't forget, you know, don't forget Jose, don't forget to count, you know, her, or him, rather. And so I think that's going to be a big challenge. And then finally, language access. If you think about in your schools, in your organizations, how many languages do they actually speak? Some of those parents need to have it in another language. So that's something that we've been really keenly focused on and trying to figure out what are the best things. What I do know is we can't do what the US Census Bureau is doing, which is limiting it to their top languages. They're only going to have paper forms in English and Spanish. We as a state, with the $187 million that the governor and the legislature has set aside, cannot only print in English and Spanish. And so if you hear that's happening, you need to say, hey, wait a minute, we're about language access, and that's what's going to make a difference as we move forward. What we do know from the past is that trusted messengers are the best way to reach our hardest to count populations who are distrustful to government. However, as I mentioned, I was chair over at NAC, the National Advisory Committee. I sat with people like Arturo Vargas. You know Arturo, he heads up NALEO. NALEO is doing fantastic work in terms of reaching Latino children, you know, under 5. But even Arturo has told me, much to his membership's chagrin, that elected officials and politicians are not trusted messengers. Not even if they speak the language. I mean, we can agree on that, right? So we gotta make sure that if we're investing these dollars, that we're actually using trusted messengers, right? Many of the people that you come in contact, you are the trusted messengers, right? You're where the people are at. So we have to, be sure that this whole census outreach effort is not taking on this sort of, I don't even know what the word is, but it's more campaigny, and it'll miss the point of the people that we're gonna miss, right? Because we gotta count everyone, not just voters. And we gotta our whole efforts to reach the people who are not gonna respond at all. So, I was told the slicker the campaign looks, the more fancy, the more it looks like Madison Avenue, the less trusted it is, right? I mean, I see you guys are like, yeah, keep it simple so that our parents understand that they need to do this. We need to make sure that we're not merely translating, an English message into whatever language that it is. We need to make sure that we're using folks who actually have experience reaching these audiences in the language and in the way and in the words that resonate with them. I think that, let's get back to the undercount of young children. So there is a fact that in 2010, many of the children that were undercounted were actually in households that actually returned the form. So what happened there? And we spent a long time, 2 years when I was on this advisory committee, asking, Census Bureau, what happened? And they said, we can't get to the what happened, but what we can get to is it happened and it's gonna happen again if we don't educate them. So I kind of want to look forward in that. Is it concealment? Is it confusion? Whatever it is, they didn't get counted. And so we have to do whatever we need to do to be like, oh yeah, that babe in arms, if you're born this year, you're gonna be in 5th grade in 2030. So what does that mean if you're missed this time around? What does that mean in terms of having a seat at the classroom? My daughter's 16 and last year she goes to public school here in Sacramento. In her math class, there weren't enough seats. She had to sit on the ground for half a semester, which is fine because she's left-handed and they didn't have any left-handed desks. Anyway, I'm left-handed. I'm a little chip on the block about they don't cater to left-handed people, but so yeah, my lefties. We just have to make sure that we're tapping into that. Many of you have already been funded or working with foundations and doing great work to make sure that we're educating all of our organizations. We're currently working with First 5 Association, other partners in early childhood education. Many of you are here today, and we're looking forward to continuing that partnership. They're already doing great work out there, and I have to say that this time around, I have 9 times the money I had in 2000. I look at Khadija, thank you, Khadija. But I do have half the staff, 9 times the money, half the staff. And so they're building a really great sort of state department, but we're getting around the corner where we just have to go, right? We just have to get it done. And so I'm really trying to get back out to the field to say, what are you guys doing? What do you need? What do you need to understand? How do we connect folks on the ground to really understand what the enumeration process is? Because if you don't get that, then you're not going to do the right outreach around it, and people are going to be more confused. So my biggest fear is that there's going to be so much stuff going out there that people are going to be more confused that they're just like, wait, somebody called me, somebody knocked on my door, didn't I answer? Oh no, that was somebody who did outreach. So we just have to work with our partners who are doing great work. Let's try to avoid some confusion. But let's talk about the state's investments for our children in 12th grade and all the way under. They fall into a number of categories, both the education sector and our sector outreach. And I want to just recognize Dr. Mignon Pollard, who's leading up our education efforts all by herself. It's a big job. So she has $5.75 million that are going to county offices of education, that's a lot of contracts. That's 45 or 46. 45 are opting in. And that formula is really based on Title I and Title III because we're focusing on the hardest to count. It reaches 98% of our targeted population, so we thought that was a really good investment. But one of the things we did early on, when I came aboard in 2017, I was told, Dita, you're only gonna get $3 million. What are you gonna do? You got 3 years to do it. I was like, ooh, $3 million. I said, I want to take some money, I want to invest in education, because the Census in Schools, Statistics in Schools program had failed miserably in 2010. They were kind of late to the game, and it never made it down to the teachers. I mean, it's probably great stuff. It sat on pallets, and we never mailed it out. So I got with Sacramento County Office of Education, Frank Peasy, and I said, partly because at that time I had a 7th, 8th grader, and she came home and she said, Mom, we talked about the census today. I said, well, what did you talk about? She goes, it was a glossary word. That's all it was. And I'm like, what? I go, did you say anything? She goes, yeah, I got up on my, I said, you all need to be counted. You all need to do this. And all the kids were like, that is way too much private information. I am not giving that out. And I go, I hope you said something back, because the teacher is like sitting back going, I don't know what I'm supposed to say. And she said, yeah. I said, you guys fill out more private information on that BuzzFeed quiz when you're trying to figure out if you're a Hufflepuff or whatever, right? Whatever Harry Potter. You guys give them, and they're like, oh, you're right. She's like, it's secure, and it's about schools. It's about having a seat in my classroom. It's about having good roads. It's about making sure that emergency room is 10 minutes closer, so her friend's dad that suffered a stroke would have got there 10 minutes earlier and suffered less damage. So anyway, so that's where I was like, oh my God, it's gotta be more than a glossary word. And I talked to Frank Peasy, who does social science, and I said, 5th, 8th, 11th, and 12th, because that's where they focus in. Don't do a shotgun, try to educate everyone. Let's focus on the areas and those awesome teachers who are already involved, social science teachers who are already involved in civic engagement, and let's create the curriculum that takes them less than 10 minutes to implement. Like, you don't have to research, and the researching these days, they want to be able to say, oh my God, I'm going to cover the 3/5 of man compromise, right? How do I tie that into census? I'm going to cover Western expansion. How does that tie in? And they can pull those down. So what did we do? We funded LACO and SCOE, and they took real California teachers out of the classroom, and they created real curriculum for California teachers made by California teachers. That's where we need to start. And we're currently rolling it out. And you guys we have information about how you can access that. But in terms of funding, top 46 counties based on the weighted population, we really want to use facilities as much as we can to provide questionnaire assistance. So if you think about, they have vote centers and people can go to that. If you think about the core of what we need to do is remove all barriers for people to respond. If they need access to a computer, who has access? Where can they go safely and talk to a trusted messenger in their relevant language to be able to get help to fill it out? So those are questionnaire assistance centers that we want partners on the ground, that we'd love to engage educational institutions, clinics, Head Start clinics across the state to figure out how do we remove that barrier? How to remove the barrier of people not really knowing or having a place to feel safe to fill it out. So that's one of the big things that we're looking to do. The Count Me In curriculum currently being rolled out. If you know folks, say, hey, I really want to know about that. My daughter's at McClatchy. I've talked to Mrs. Wong over there if there's any Sacramentans. I'm like, hey, I'll come speak myself. Let me talk to all the teachers, have a teach-in. I'll come in the afternoon, we'll bring pizza, we'll talk about it. So, it's really about being on the ground. And I know I only have a few minutes. I want to make sure there's time for some questions. If there are questions, just some things that you can do right now. Connect with your local complete count committee in your county, who is also connecting with their county first 5. And they're kind of getting that overview of some of the counties we're funding aren't doing anything for 0 to 5. But if you notice, 0 to 5 is a population that crosses all of our demographics, right? It crosses all of it. So we have an opportunity, if we're reaching out to them, to reach their parents, to reach their older siblings, who, guess what, if you're in 12th grade, you're probably gonna be a voter soon. If you're not, my daughter is 16, she's mad she didn't get to vote in 2016. She can't vote in 2020, but she says, Mom, I'm gonna take this on and I'm gonna get my youth in government and my Model UN and all my kids, folks that can't vote who are kind of mad, to really step up and do that. Promote a census week. Get students to be census ambassadors. Don't wait for us, but let them, it looks great on their college applications that I was a census ambassador and I was civically engaged. The one thing that we haven't talked a lot about is social media. A lot of bad stuff out there. There's gonna be more bad stuff targeting. They definitely don't want Californians counted, is user-generated content. My daughter, she creates She comes home, she says, oh, I have to do something on the liberators of South America. Over the weekend, they created a rap video, because they were told to do a modern, about Toussaint and Bolivar, and they did this perfectly edited, amazing video. What can our youth do? What can they create? Can they do coloring books? Can they do videos? Can they do memes? What can they generate on their own? And you guys have all the answers. I certainly don't. I listen to all yours and I spread the news to other groups of what you're doing. Anyway, that was a quick update. I wanted to open if there's any specific questions. Do I have time for some questions? Yeah, any questions? You guys are all going to be, I think I asked you last year. Here we have a question right here.
I just had a question about your count meeting.
So, and I can actually give you the bit.ly. It is, if you type in, it's www.bit.ly/2020 census inquiries. And I'm going to put my glasses on for that. And then if you want to know about locations and dates to register to attend a training session, it's the same bit.ly, it's a /census rollout. And we have handouts. Is it on the handout? Okay, so we have a handout that's going to be out front about Kids Count, but Mignon can also, if you take her, she can send you the link as well. It's pretty good stuff. I was really impressed with it. Other questions? So I heard you guys were brainstorming about things you can do for other sort of enrollments. Really think about what we can do for census, because you guys know how much is at stake. And it only happens once every 10 years. And I'm telling you, our students are totally going to make the difference, especially the ones that can't vote. Yes?
I have a quick question. Is there any latest messaging that you know about that is resonating with families that are still afraid because of their undocumented status to be counted?
So I know we were working with First Five Association, and they did some research with Lake. And so they're currently meeting with our Mercury contractor to really look at that research and say what does work. Because, forever, that fear is going to be out there. And I don't know who knows who is going to be unleashing. If you think about March 3rd is the primary, so people are running. What is the rhetoric going to be during February and March leading up to the primary? Because March is the primary, and then you get your postcard to respond March 12th. So what is the lingering that's going to be there? But all I know is hopefully whatever bad it is, that we can come out hard March 12th through April 30th to just flood the airwaves, flood our eyes with why it's so important. But we'll be working closely with Naleo and others to figure that out. Stay tuned. All right, anything else? Well, thank you very much, and I look forward to meeting with all of you to get everybody counted.